People are just coming in at the moment, so lovely to see you all. Thank you for joining us. Soledad, how are you? Denise, very good to see you. Olive, how are you? Julia Clayton, good to see you. Connie, Ron. It's always, I always say this when we do these, it's so nice to see everyone coming in. It's just, it would be so much nicer if we were in a nice hotel conference room, but there we are. It will happen again. Thank you for joining us. This session is obviously live, but we're recording this in order to put this into the Academy to give people more clarity about the MIM Plus program. So just very briefly to let you know, for those that I'm sure you all know, we have different routes to qualifications. There's a whole document on the website about that, including a guide, so do go and take a look. But MIM Plus is a way for people to continue their training once they've got their Managing International Mobility initial qualification. But it's also a way for you to choose to do more in-depth training if you are really experienced within the mobility industry. So you can get your credits in all sorts of different ways. So I'm delighted to introduce you. These are our MIM Plus primary trainers. I'm going to introduce you to them one by one. First of all, Carmelina Naughton-Smith. Lovely to see you, our strategic consultant for education. Carmelina, where are you?
I am in Oxford, in the UK, where we have actually seen the sun this morning.
First time in a few days. It's been pretty grim. Gordon Kerr, also strategic consultant to EuRA, legal consultant. How are you and where are you?
I am very well. I am in Edinburgh in Scotland, where the sun is blazing and the temperatures are high in my imagination.
That's very unlikely in December, I have to say. Sabine Baylocker, lovely to see you. How are you and where are you?
I'm in Geneva, Switzerland, where we do not speak about the weather. This is no, this morning we saw a little bit of sun and even a little bit of snow on the mountains already.
Wow, okay. That's that is early, right?
No, normally it could be way early. Yeah.
Yeah. And Susan Ginsberg, lovely to see you. How are you and where are you? Oh, sorry, Susan, did I lose you there?
Yes.
Hello, sorry, Susan Ginsberg, lovely to see you. How are you and where are you?
Good to see you. Good to see everyone. I'm in New York. I'm about 30 minutes outside of New York City. Everyone is just waking up here, so the sun has not come out yet, but it will today.
So what we're going to do today is just go through the modules that are available to you from these four fantastic trainers who put these together for us. Just a reminder that at the moment, all of the MIM training is free, not just the content, but free to certify, and we will be continuing to do that, I think I said, until January 31st. Susan, I'd love to start with you. You initially developed for us the module Achieving Business Growth, which was one of the first, I should give it its full title, Achieving Business Growth in an Uncertain World, which you put together for us as one of the very first MIM Plus modules. What was the inspiration behind that?
Well, who knew that about 18 months to 2 years ago that we truly would be living in an uncertain world. I developed this module about 2 years ago. It's entitled, its acronym ABG actually happens to be my first granddaughter's initials, so it has a special place in my heart. The objective for this module is really, it's applicable to anyone. Any EuRA member, frankly, even to, to corporate learners. The objective behind this is to provide methodologies, thought practices, systems, and tools for anyone who's looking to identify opportunities, challenges, and craft solutions to grow their business. So, for example, we talk about establishing an innovation roadmap, optimizing partnerships, developing what I like to call your collaborative muscle, and understanding the various tools available to you and questions to ask in developing a roadmap to grow your business.
And the module has had some fantastic feedback. We've been really blessed with people saying how much it's actually helped them, especially now as people are navigating new business planning and new ways of looking at what they're going to be doing in the future. It's been of great value. But that's your background, right? That's been your career background.
Yes, for almost 40 years, my background has been strategic planning and business development in both the relocation industry as well as the retail industry. And I'm really happy to share that having looked at other modules, for example, Carmelina's modules, I was pleased to be able to kind of intersect and integrate some of what she talked about, you know, from emotional intelligence, the importance of collaboration and optimizing your skills in a way that you can be kind of an effective player in the ecosystem.
That's good of you to say, because that brings me on to another point. I mean, Carmelina is our strategic consultant for education, and you know, when we've talked about the development of the program, we've tried to keep themes throughout, you know, the various modules that are being offered. So thank you for saying that. You talked about collaboration. You are at present developing a new MIM Plus module for us. Would you tell me about that?
Yes, thank you. As I think we've all experienced in this really very crazy and strange world that we're living in now and this year, this module is entitled Collaboration in the Next Normal. Really more now than ever, the importance of leveraging your relationships, being effective in how you communicate. It's not now just about achieving your business growth, which we're all keen to do. It's really impacting social change, environmental change, social justice, through and with governments, local communities, and the importance of that is really in changing and improving our world. So in this module, we talk about what I like to call, and it's really, I took the title from the World Economic Forum, where they talk about the Great Reset. So today we're all doing what I would like to say, anything that has the prefix re in front of it, reestablishing, rethinking, revisioning, resetting. So how do we reset our global collaboration? You know, all the good work that EuRA does, bringing us all together throughout the world, all the different service providers. How do we work together to impact social change, as well as to achieve business growth for our organization, and providing the optimum experience for our customers and our clients. So we talk about in this module, business collaboration, leveraging the ecosystem, what I like to call collaborate to innovate. Today, it's all about agility. And in order to innovate, you really need to create a safe environment within your organization across industry sectors so that there's a degree of creativity and risk-taking, because none of us have a crystal ball in terms of how to kind of reset and reestablish once we recover, or as we're beginning to recover from a very, very difficult and unprecedented year. So again, here we talk about building your collaborative muscle, what that looks like. And again, I like to think of collaboration as a muscle or a series of muscles. And here we talk about, again, when I talk about advancing social change, is also advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion, which in my view is a really important piece of collaboration.
That's fantastic. Thank you. It is going to be a brilliant module. And just to, you know, for everybody who's listening, as new MIM Plus modules go online in the Academy, doesn't matter whether it's now or next year, for the first month that they are available, they will be available to free certify. So you won't have to pay to take the quiz. All our modules are free to do the learning. So if you want to go and learn about collaboration from the module, you don't have to pay. But for the first month that new modules are online, they are going to be free.
So if I could just add 2 points, with the current module that is online, Achieving Business Growth, I had the pleasure and honor of interviewing Daniel Danko, who was at the time Director of Supply Chain Management for Grable. And in the new module, I'm delighted that I'll be interviewing 2 corporate mobility and HR leaders who will be sharing their insights and real case studies as it relates to collaboration in the next module.
Susan, that's fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. It is going to be a superb module, as
Thank you.
No doubt, you're aware.
Thank you.
So just to tell everybody, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A box or in the chat box, and we will come to those at the end. Obviously, you have the opportunity to talk directly to our trainers right now. So, Gordon, I would love to come to you next. We have worked together a lot, and we've done a lot to try and give legal advice and legal guidance to the EuRA members without them having to necessarily always revert to paying a very expensive lawyer. So the legal module that you put together, I think again 2 years ago. Is it 2 years? Yes, maybe more than that actually. But it covers, I know you've written both our guide to GDPR and our guide to legal and contractual things within EuRA. So again, you came up with that. You know, you said this is what relocation providers really need to be aware of. Can you just give everyone a bit of your background and why it is that you are so good at knowing what relocation providers need?
Well, that's very kind of you to say so. But yeah, my background had been, firstly, as a lawyer in practice, founded a relocation management company, sold it into a larger European group, and was the director for many years of that group of companies. And one of the things I found, my dependence on either an in-house legal team. There were so many legal issues in so many different parts of the world we had to cope with. And I realized that almost relocation law was like a speciality in its own. It was made up of lots of different components. But if I was going to a big commercial law firm, it was actually very difficult to find advice covering the range of topics I needed working in the relocation industry. And we'll come on to these in a moment. But so I guess that when I came out of the relocation industry and was setting up my own legal consultancy, I was aware that particularly for DSPs, how do you get legal advice that is not going to cost a fortune and is relevant to you? And so I really took the view that what was needed was to raise awareness of different legal topics that I felt were relevant, so that you could decide, well, maybe I do need to get formal legal advice here, but in many cases I don't. And you know, the whole GDPR thing really brought that home, where I think all of us came across these agencies selling us these GDPR packages for thousands of pounds, euros, or dollars, which were completely unnecessary. If you were a relocation business, you just needed to know, how did the GDPR impact on your business in practice? You didn't need to buy some huge software package and consultancy. So that's kind of where I came from, this idea that DSPs, they don't have the benefit of an in-house legal department. What can we do that kind of fills some of that gap? So that was the fun in kind of pulling these areas of law together, but trying to make it practical rather than technical in terms of the advice.
I remember being at the EGQS review with you and Martina in Dubrovnik when GDPR was about to come in. Do you remember that? And you outlined with Martina what this new rule meant. And I remember two of the board members just going, well, that's it, isn't it? We no longer have a business. I mean, we can't work at it. Do you remember that? It was, the fear was so intense. And just after that, I was asked to speak with Tad at the Relocation Directors Council in the US, in DC. And I talked to a colleague, you know, from the States, just saying, you know, what has this meant for your business? And she said it's meant spending the best part of $150,000.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So people, you know, that advice at that time, Gordon, I remember you and Martina was being very risk averse, and you were saying, no, it's not going to be that bad. But that advice has been invaluable for so many people, right? And that guide is really, the downloads are phenomenal.
Yeah, I think that that was very much at the forefront of my mind when we were putting together what are the components that will make up the legal module. So there are 6 components, of which 2 are actually around data protection. So there's one specifically on the GDPR, what it means in practice, what should a DSP or an RMC business be doing about it. And we then created a second component, which was about almost the main area where things can go wrong on GDPR, which is data security. It's losing data, and that's where organizations tend to be fined. You know, it's not for having the right documentation in place, it's for actually being really careless with personal data. And so we decided there should be a component around the practical side of data security and respecting privacy. So yeah, that's really a third of the overall module itself.
And also, you know, keep an eye on our website and on the bulletins that are coming through, because Gordon is continuing to sort of develop that alongside the briefings that we're running in terms of, well, at the moment, Brexit. We're all still waiting to know when that next briefing is going to be, because nothing's really changed. But in terms of things like changes to GDPR, what's happening with Privacy Shield? I know you're keeping a very close eye on that too.
Yeah, I'm actually writing an article as we speak on with the Privacy Shield being declared invalid, what should companies do about transferring data from the EU to the United States? And some information has just come out from the European Data Protection Board, which is a little bit, it's a mixture of, it's both vague and complicated, if that's possible. But so trying as a lawyer to understand what it really means and then try to translate it for the benefit of relocation businesses is kind of where I see my role. But this one is particularly challenging because EU legal speak is kind of horrible stuff, and it's at times it's just so vague as to be almost meaningless. But anyway, that's another story.
Like I say, keep an eye, because we'll be covering those issues and tackling those issues with Gordon. And just to bring a little Priam in Bangalore says, Gordon appeared like Gandalf at just the right time to save us. So thank you, Gordon. That's a great comment, Priam. I appreciate it. Sabine, can I come to you? We have had a lot of fun over the years doing training together. Sabine and I used to train together a lot on culture. Why don't you talk about how you came to your journey into going really from destination services and RMCs to becoming an intercultural expert?
Ula. Okay, so I think it has to do with people and with the fact that I realized that after finding their apartment, after doing all of the basic part of the Maslow pyramid, if you want, when people were growing and they had all the security that was settled, meaning they had their apartment, they had found a school and everything, and then one of them, maybe 2 of them were going to work, etc., there was still problems, or they were calling us with things that were, in a way, feeling more important to them than just finding the apartment at the beginning. And I realized that we shouldn't stop our services at just finding them an apartment and making sure that they had a work permit and all those kind of things, because that wasn't sufficient for people to integrate. And just before Susan spoke about diversity and inclusion, and I've been to a conference lately where we went clearly from diversity and inclusion to sense of belonging. And I think that's what I'm talking about when I speak of culture and cultural integration. It's not only being able to communicate with other people, it's feeling a sense of belonging in the new place where you live in. And that's what can be acquired in a way, or that you can gain when you really do cross-cultural training in a good way.
Absolutely. I mean, it's such a fascinating area, and it's a very huge area. And Sabine, you're probably one of the best read people I've ever. Every time we speak, you give me 10 more books that I need to read. I've got 2 here. And I mean, you based the reading list for cultural theory and intelligence, which is in the MIM fixed syllabus program is phenomenal.
Yeah, and as you say, I could, if I go on it now, maybe I should do it. I would add all of the 20 books I have read since I put it online. So the important one, not all the books I read, all the ones that I think are massively interesting in terms of cultural theory, because it's a field that has evolved so much in the last 20 years. It's interesting because in the 20th century, it was really business-based and mainly cross-cultural communication, and mainly how do we work with a diverse team and those kind of things. But today we understand, because of all the cognitive research that has been made, that our culture influence the way our brain works, which is massive in reality. So it's the beginning of the cultural cognitive science theories. So there are some research that are done, some are very local, so you cannot compare it comparing on culture, but some are starting to grow that are made in several countries, and people are realizing these things, and scientific are working on it in a crazy way, in the way we acquire languages, in the way we integrate how we perceive the world. Even when we look at a picture, depending on where we grew, we will see something different. And our brain is wired that way. So it's almost impossible to change it at one point. And therefore, if we're not aware of those things, we will always see things differently without understanding why.
And I mean, I know you've just come from delivering the CETAR Switzerland conference, and I know there was quite a lot of content there about, and which you have put into the module about the link between, as you say, neuroscience and what was the cultural theories that I learned, Hofstede and Edward T. Hall and von Strompenas. Things have moved on hugely, right?
Yeah. I was telling you a few years ago when we started together, I was telling we have to stop about those different from nationality between different country and different nationality. And today we see that it has, and it's interesting because we went from cluster, like region, to nationality, then dividing it into smaller region per nationality. And now we go back to cluster, because in reality, we realize that the way our brains are wired is more regional. It's going across border, okay? But still, there are some regional similarities, okay? European, we have a brain that is wired in a similar way. And then you have sub-Saharan Africa that have a brain that is wired in a similar way, et cetera, et cetera. So it's interesting to see that we went from big to more details and more concentrated, and now we're growing again, but looking at, in fact, bigger cluster, and at the same time more individualist kind of thing, because we're looking at the brain of people and how more individual can it be.
Absolutely. And you have been working on a new module for the MIM Plus program, which is Living and Working with Bias, which again will go online at the beginning of the year. And again, for the first month that that's online, whether it's during this period where we're doing free certification or afterwards, we'll be free to certify. What fascinated you about bias as a subject?
Well, first to realize that even though I thought I wasn't biased, or not that much, in fact, I realized I was massively biased, okay? And then starting to work on my bias, okay? For example, as somebody that grew up in Switzerland, I had some kind of bias against, well, for example, Christian. If I had to compare Christian or Muslim, I grew up in a society that, of course, would be biased towards Christian rather than Muslims, okay? And I worked so much on it that the last test I did, in fact, I'm biased towards Muslims and not Christians. So on the other hand, it's not ideal either. I would like to be neutral. That would be great. But what really fascinated me was to realize that even though I've been fighting for gender equality for my 35 years, I am biased against women in some things. If I do a test, I realize that because of the fact that we all grow in societies that are biased against women, and I do have some bias against women. So I was like, okay, if I have that, even though I have studied so much and I know about bias, and I know how to try to catch them and to do something else, how far can I go to really work on this, and what can I do, and how can I help other people being aware of those bias? And we speak a lot about those bias today, and we know that there are some that are influencing our everyday life. And in cultural, I mean, in the relocation industry, we meet so many people that are completely different than us, that have other kinds of values, other ways of perceiving things, etc. If we don't, in a way, master or try to work with those bias and understand them, and really, yeah, I don't know, manage them in a way, which is impossible, but at least acknowledge them, it can lead to massive miscomprehension.
Absolutely.
So it's a step further than just cultural communication, if you want.
I think that's what fascinated me when we talked about developing, you developing this module, you came up with the idea. I think it's just an example, you cannot know what you cannot know. It's only when you start to look at what it is that, I didn't know I was that, I didn't know I had that going on. So yeah, it's going to be fascinating. That's going to be going online in the new year. So again, watch out for that. Thank you so much, Sabine. It's
thank you.
Fascinating topic. Carmelina, great to see you as always. I'm going to start, if you don't mind, with excellence in service delivery. I think, I'm not. I'm going to go right back to the beginning. So Carmelina and I met when I came to you were facilitating an intercultural seminar at Oxford Brookes University. And I came along to that. And it was there that for the first time, Sabine and I had been talking about culture, and we'd already developed that module. But suddenly there was this, wow, Sabine, you were talking about David Livermore and his approach being the individual approach. And Carmelina, you were working as the director of international coaching at the university. And suddenly it was like, ping, these things really match. I mean, and out of that came the Coaching Approaches in Mobility program and excellence in service delivery. Start with excellence in service delivery, because that mirrors your background, because you shifted from, you say,
yeah. So thank you. So for those of you who don't know me, my original life, I started in account management. I worked in marketing research in an account management role, and I spent a number of years there, so sort of customer facing. And then I made the very strange transition into the operations area and customer services. And I was a very strange animal that had managed to experience dealing with customers at the front end, but also in providing services internally in terms of what we actually deliver to them. And that basically took me into the training arena, because people were saying, oh, this is great. You can go around Europe and talk to them both, because we had, and I don't know how many people experience this in their own organization, the salespeople have a very different way of thinking, as Sabine says, to the people who are in operations. And the salespeople would think it was all about trying to make sure they could sell stuff that they then gave to the production people, who decided it couldn't be made because it was just too difficult or not cost effective or whatever. So those two silos, trying to get people to speak across that silo, became the sort of driver. So I got into training, and that's where I've been ever since. My background is psychology, so I'm not the relocation professional that all the rest of you are. So I come at it very much from that sort of psychological perspective, and building on what Sabine's just said, really. The thing that I think joins these two aspects, the excellence in service delivery and coaching approaches to mobility, is that theme of how we work with people, not an Italian, not a German, not a label that's come from Hofstede, but the complexity of what Sabine is now having to cover. And when we started talking, we were saying, well, we need to look at people as individuals as well, because of those individual biases, because of those, they've all had a different journey. They are the true global citizen. I mean, we all know people who may have lived in 3 different countries, have parents who've come from different cultures, whose children have gone to study somewhere else. You know, it's no longer easy to just give someone a label and go, oh yes, this is how you deal with one of these. That's just not the thing that now most of you who work in relocation are experiencing. So it links very much with what Sabine was saying, that we start to look at individuals and how we as service professionals actually then adapt to the needs of all those different customer groups and try and avoid our own biases in terms of, oh, this is one of those, this is how I need to be. So excellence in service delivery came out of a bit of the brain science that Sabine was talking about. We were looking at some of the work that David Rock was putting out about how we respond to threats, and then we decided to develop a unique model that we developed specifically for EuRA, which was based on understanding that as service professionals, we not only deal with an individual, but we have a responsibility to the organization that we work for or who pays the bills as well. So we try and bring those two aspects together and look at things like on the individual level, looking at how we build those relationships, how we establish what the customer actually needs, how we achieve a successful engagement. You know, where's the finish line? What are we trying to achieve here? And how we bring the client in their own way. Sabine was talking a lot about this, this idea of how individuals perceive the world. And even if we don't know it, what we say and how we communicate has completely different interpretations. So then taking it to the organizational level, we talk about how as a professional, we have to bear in mind and balance the needs not only of the client, but actually the organization. You know, if we spend way more time with the client than the client sponsor is paid for, are we being fair to our organization? Those kind of issues. Big idea about expectations, where expectations come from, how they're set, how we meet them or manage them, I suppose. And also getting recognition for the organization and all the good stuff we do, because a lot of people, as soon as you do something wrong, the client will beat you over the head with it, but people seem to always forget all the things that you do well. So that customer service perspective from a psychological relocation spin on it, I suppose, is excellent in service delivery.
It's a terrific module, and that's why we chose to make this module the GMS conversion, because there's nothing in the GMS program like excellence in service delivery. It was a fantastic way of looking at, you know, services delivered within relocation with that overview of the psychology of the individual. And then we spent 3 days with a group of fantastic EuRA members in London developing the coaching approaches in mobility program, which is vast. It's a terrific program. It's 4 programs, it's 12 individual modules, covering just some of the most interesting things that transactional analysis, you know, that got me straight away. So yeah, so we decided we needed something that was going to really reach out to the consultant, to skills base. Is that where we started with that?
Yes, I think we did, because we realized that a lot of the skills that we use in coaching in terms of interpersonal and relationships and how we work with people, there were an awful lot of topics which I could see parallels, I suppose, and we thought had relevance. So we gradually built up a lot of short individual skills-based modules for the let's say the more experienced practitioner. So once we know about how the mobility industry works and we've got that the sort of cultural base, there are a lot of other things that then come up. So we on that program talk about things like using questioning and listening skills, roles and responsibilities, stakeholder theory, stakeholder management. But then going into some of the theories, Tom's already mentioned about transactional analysis is a way of interacting with people, and it had a lot of bad press back in the 80s. It was used unethically, shall we say, by many salespeople to supposedly manipulate people to do things. But it has a lot of interesting ideas, and we pick up on that in things like conflict handling, how we manage, you know, issues that sometimes can arise. obviously, some of the things that we talked about in terms of, Susan was talking about emotional intelligence and how we understand change, which is that big thing that everybody has to go through, and especially at the moment, how we learn and how we develop as professionals. And I'm picking up on this idea that we do want to become professionally recognized as an industry. And if we're going to do that, we have to sometimes speak the language of that leadership education, shall we say. So a lot of these are ideas or concepts which are quite common in leadership, MBAs, that kind of stuff that we've kind of picked up on. And there is a short presentation with an audio that people can watch. There are a few activities, case studies that people can discuss. And we've had some feedback where people have used those case studies in team meetings just to fuel discussion. They can be quite a good way to get a team to work together. And the one that also attracted a bit of interest was one called Positive Focus, which plays to resilience and how sometimes people are wired, as Sabine says, to look for the negatives, and that actually sometimes we need to rebalance that equation a little bit. And at the moment, that can be quite a useful thing to have. So in terms of that, as you say, it's quite a big program. It can be done in very short bursts. It's not a big thing you have to commit to, because each one is broken into manageable chunks. And hopefully everybody can get something which might make them think a little bit in terms of how they apply those ideas into their own context. It is not prescriptive. It is not one that says you must do it this way. It is more about, these are some thoughts. How does this play out in your country, your culture, your business, the way that you operate?
And I'll just add to that. I mean, like I say, I'm very passionate about this program. There's nothing else like it within the mobility sphere. But one thing that I will never forget was, I'm not one for taking praise, but the Global Mobility Director of the World Bank put her entire team through it and said that it was the highest level of training that she'd ever come across in mobility. And we were kind of like, wow, that's very exciting. But it was true, right? I mean, they loved it. They absolutely got so much out of it. And we've moved that program now. It was on a platform which made it asynchronous, and we did it in batches so that people could discuss. It was quite a challenge for you, Carmelina, I know, to put that into the academy, but you've done a fantastic job on it. So thank you so much. I'd also like to talk to you just briefly about, we did training with Myers-Briggs a couple of times, which has been fascinating. And we've been trying to work out how we can get that into the academy in some format. So keep close eye on that, because that is also fascinating. Thank you so much, all four of you, for everything that you've done to contribute to the academy. I have to say, the timing of this, being able to get the academy online last year for this year, this extraordinary year, was just an amazing coincidence of timing. If anybody has any questions for our four brilliant trainers, please just pop a note in the chat box or into the Q&A. And obviously, if you think of something further down the line, all our trainers are on the academy, so you can contact them at different times. But like I say, keep an eye on the program, because we're trying to expand it as much as we can. We know that certainly for the next few months, while everybody is adjusting to what's coming next, we're going to try and get content up there so that people have the opportunity to upskill at no charge. Carmelina.
Yeah, Dom, can I just add to that, that if anyone has any specific interesting topics they think we should investigate as possibles for the academy, we'd love to hear them, either in the chat box or subsequently, because obviously we are the product of our brain structure, as Sabine said. So we may not know what you actually think would be important. And a lot of the research that has been done, that Sabine has been alluding to, quite often is very Western in its basis, because research has often been based in the Western world. And we are now finding an increase in sort of Asia Pacific and some of the other areas coming in and actually questioning some of the ideas and theories that we've all kind of lived with and taken for granted. So we'd always be interested to see other people's suggestions for how the MIM Plus program certainly could be expanded, because as Dominic said, we don't know what we don't know.
Absolutely true. And in fact, after last week, we ran a briefing on working with Indian expats, which was delivered by Priyanvada Majumdar from Helma, which was absolutely brilliant. the highest turnout that we've ever had for a briefing, and that's actually going out, the recording's going out to all members today. But the feedback that came from that was, we would really love to have some cultural influence on how to work with Americans, how to work with Japanese, how to work with Chinese. So I think that's definitely something we're going to be concentrating on going forward. I would just like to say, Susan, Sabine, Gordon, Carmelina, we couldn't have done any of this without you and your brilliant expertise. So thank you so much for what you've brought to EuRA and to the EuRA membership. And like I say, especially now when we've had this very strange time and time on our hands to learn and grow. So thank you very much to all of you, and we'll say goodbye until the next time. Susan.
I'd just like to say thank you to EuRA for having such a passion for and a focus on learning and sharing these learning modules with Carmelina and the rest of the MIM trainers. I think is really brilliant. It really shows very much what EuRA is all about. And as I'm listening to all these wonderful MIM Plus trainers, what is so great is the common themes and threads through what all of us talking about and the objectives of our set of our modules. And that's the importance of collaboration, of agility, of listening, of effective communication, as well as Sabine and Carmelina talked about, the art of influence and the power of persuasion.
Thank you, Susan. That sums up that beautifully. And we talk about this a lot. Completely agree with you 100%. Thank you to Connie. Thank you to Priya for the very kind comments you've put in the boxes there. Gordon, I just want to draw, we're doing a briefing next week on the impact of the Biden administration on mobility, whether or not the political shift in our landscape will have a change. So Gordon, I'll be catching up with you next week. Susan, I'll be catching up with you soon. Sabine, same, we're going to catch up about living with bias. Carmelina, always great to see you, and we're going to work on stuff next year. So rest assured, between us as a team, we will keep doing our very best. But like Carmelina said, if you know something that you would really, really like to study and that we can help with, we would love to do that. Olive, thank you so much for your comment. I will say thank you to our brilliant trainers. It's great to see you as always. And to everybody, if we don't speak, happy holidays. Take care.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye.
Stay well, stay safe.
Exactly. Couldn't agree more.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.